Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Mark, and if you're just joining us, we are finishing up a three-part series on how we got interested in dirt bikes. Where we left off was my youngest son had a TTR 125, my oldest son had a TTR 230, and I had a WR 250F. Well, that was all about to change when we went to an open practice day at one of our local racetracks. Yamaha was there demoing bikes, and my oldest son got to demo a brand new YZ 125. Well, he fell in love with it, being that he liked to be on the racetrack and jump. That bike just flew for him. The suspension was there, and he took right to it. It didn't seem like he was afraid at all, and he was actually transitioning jumps. He wasn't hitting the top, he was hitting the downside. So my wife and I talked, and we said, well, this could be his next bike. So we started looking for a new used, of course. That's what we were after in the beginning, and we couldn't find one. A lot of the bikes that are bought are raced, and they're highly modified, and we didn't want something that was raced and something that was modified. And that's hard to find. Well, we did find one locally, and it was clean, as saying no dirt, but there were definitely scratches on the plastic, and you could tell that the bike had been ridden. But it wasn't beat up. And there were a few things that I saw. It had leaky fork seals, and the front fender rubbed on the front of the radiator fins. I didn't really think a thing of that, but those were the only two things that I saw. It started right up. We couldn't ride it because it was later in the year. It was in wintertime. So we looked at it and we talked, and I didn't commit right then and there, but I came home. I looked up how much it was going to cost to replace the fork seals, and it was only $150. So, and it was a pretty low price. So we counter offered, and the guy accepted our offer. Well, we got it home, and I immediately was excited because I could get to tear it apart and clean it up and, kind of make it ours. Well, as soon as I took the shrouds off the sides of the gas tank to expose the radiators, both radiators were bowed in about an inch. Well, my heart sunk because, well, they were damaged and the fins were crushed, and the reason why the fender was rubbing on the radiators was because all the bracketry had bent. So I was now faced with buying new radiators or trying to repair them or something. Well, I got online, and new radiators OEM were $500. Aftermarkets were about $150, but I found a website and I will post a link to his website, on a guy actually hammering out the radiators and making them straight again. And I saw the video in disbelief, thinking, is this even possible? And I watched the entire video and I said, I'm gonna try it. Well, what do I have to lose? Well, it took 2 hours, and my son holding it and me hammering it out, and we got them straight. And they didn't leak. So we were out of the woods with that, but turned out that there were a few more things wrong with the bike. The rear rotor was bent in the back. It was out about 1/8 of an inch, and it rubbed, and we didn't really notice that because we didn't push the bike around, we didn't ride it. So we ended up straightening that out on the bike. So that wasn't a big deal, but that was something. The carburetor leaked gas out of the overflow tube when you lean the bike over more than 20 degrees. Didn't notice that until we got it home and into the garage, and I saw a puddle of gas on the floor, and I thought, what was that? And then we realized what was going on. We found a broken bracket that held the muffler on. The tab completely broke off, and there were two pieces of metal welded together and haphazardly put on the bike that held the muffler on. So we ended up having to make a bracket to put the muffler back into the correct geometry, because the muffler and the expansion chamber did not match up completely. So we had to fix that. The chain and the sprockets were completely spent. We had to do new chain, new sprockets. We had to replace the fins on the front of the radiators because they were bent and cracked. We ended up putting a new front fender and a rear fender on just for aesthetics because my son wanted to make the bike look good. And the expansion chamber had some dents in it, so he put an aluminum stone guard in front of it kind of to hide the dents and to kind of make it look nice. Because the fork seals leaked, and I had never done them before, I ended up taking them to a dealership and they did them for me. Because I had never taken a set of forks apart, and I figured let the professionals do it this time, make sure that they're good. And as a result of those leaking, the front brake pads were completely soaked with oil. So I ended up buying new brake pads for the front. The rears were fine. They were almost brand new because a lot of the braking's in the front. So once we got the bike pretty much squared away, he got to ride it, and we immediately realized that the bike was low on power. It actually didn't run right. It would stutter, and when he tried to get on it, the power just wasn't consistent. It would cut out. So we ended up buying a JD jet kit and installed it in the carburetor, and I again readjusted the float, and it didn't spill gas out of the overflow tube, and the bike had great power. We ended up not having to rebuild the top end. It had good compression, and again, it started on the first kick every single time, and we never had a problem with the cylinder. And that was pretty much what we had to go through. Now, it was a labor of love. We did get it for a great price. We ended up tearing the bike completely apart, putting it back together, which was fun for me because I like to work on the bikes. I love to wrench on the engines and play with them. So it was it was sad and it was happy. So I was glad that we were through that. It basically took most of the winter to get through that process. But we had a functioning YZ125 for my son to ride on the track. All right, so we had 4 bikes and we needed to get rid of one. Well, come spring, my youngest son immediately went to the 230 because he had a growth spurt, and it was great. We were able to get him onto the bigger bike, and we immediately sold the TTR 125 in the spring. So that probably lasted for about another 2 or 3 months until one day he was riding the 230 and he went off a jump and he broke a rear spoke. And it was in the beginning of the day, and now he didn't have anything to ride because I didn't have any spare spokes. So I was able to convince him to try the WR250F. Well, it took some doing, but he ended up being able to ride it around the field. He didn't go in the woods, he didn't go on the track. He rode it around for a while. Well, in the meantime, I fixed the spokes, and in the weeks later, he was kind of riding a little bit of the 230 and a little bit of the 250F. Well, the more he got used to the 250, he liked the power, he liked the suspension, and I noticed that this was a pattern. So I started looking for another bike for myself, and I found a 2015 YZ250FX, which is this bike right here. So we were back to 4 bikes, and I was trying to get him to completely commit to the 250. And that's what I was able to do. So we sold the 230, so now we were again back to 3 bikes. YZ125, WR250F, and the YZ250FX, which is an awesome bike. Now when I bought this bike, I had learned my lesson. It ran great, everything was fixed, there was no problems, it ran great, there were no leaks of any kind, so I didn't have any problems with this. So that was the end of me buying bikes that I didn't know what I was doing. So we got this bike, ran great, it was awesome. So that was the next move in our bike change. We finished out the summer with those 3 bikes: YZ125, WR250F, and the YZ250FX. My son goes to college, oldest son goes to college, and when he comes back for fall break, we decided to take the bikes out one last time. And he took his YZ125 on the racetrack and said, I don't know if I want to do the racetrack anymore. It doesn't suit me anymore. I'm not interested in it anymore. I'm like, okay, well, ride in the woods. Well, he took the YZ125 into the woods and said it doesn't really go well in the woods. And of course, those who know, you got to stay on the pipe, you got to slip the clutch a lot, you got to really ride them hard in order for them to keep the speed up. So I says, what are you telling me? He goes, well, I think I might want to get rid of it. I said, okay, well, we weren't going to get rid of it right away. I thought maybe it was just, he was at college and he wasn't interested anymore. Well, he was probably back to college another 3 or 4 weeks, and he called me up and said, I definitely want to sell the 125. I said, okay. So I tear it all apart, get it all clean, make sure everything was fine, nothing broken. So I got it all together and we ended up selling it. So at the end of the year, we only had the WR250F and YZ250FX. Well, we actually did ride one more time at the end of the year. It was late October, and it was cold, but we had a great time. We basically had the two bikes, and I would switch off with my oldest son on the YZ250FX. And it was actually pretty manageable. You know, it gave me a chance to rest and sit. We camped, and it was fun. But in the back of my mind, I was still kind of like, I don't really have a bike for myself now. It's like the kids have bikes, and that was kind of bothering me a little bit. So I did a lot of looking for several months, making attempts to find a new used YZ250FX, and I found one. The guy had listed it on Craigslist, and it was a great buy. It had aftermarket pipe, it had hand guards, it had a skid plate, it had radiator guards, and it had a lowering link. And the lowering link actually was the hook, because my oldest son was a little shorter and he had a hard time touching on the other FX. So I thought, great, I can add this lowering link to it, and it was probably worth about $200. And now he had a bike that he can touch on, and then I had a bike that was for my height. So I bought the bike and we brought it home. I cleaned it up, tore it all apart, and I got it back together, and the bike was immaculate. I mean, the guy really didn't ride it. In fact, at that time, because of the 250FXs, I bought the computer that would change the mapping, and it had 17 hours on it. That's all the computer said. So I like, wow, that was great. So, and I actually plugged it into the first FX that we had, and I think with the total, we had, 31 hours. So there were a whole lot of hours on it when I bought it. So that is how we got to the bikes that are behind me. We have a 2013 WR250F, a 2015, and a 2016 YZ250FX. So the reason why I started this channel was because I wanted to share with you how we own and operate dirt bikes in suburbia. You know, there's maintenance that we have to do. We have to store the bikes. We have to do all kinds of things in a very small space. And I felt that we had something to share and to help people who live in the same neighborhoods and areas that we do, but still would like to own dirt bikes. We don't have very large trailers. I don't have a barn. We keep the dirt bikes in the garage. We keep the tools on the shelf. And we somehow got the trailer in the backyard, and I'll post a video on that later. But we think that what we have learned can help you get into riding dirt bikes. Now, some of the things that we're going to cover is going to be general maintenance, working on the bikes, maintaining them throughout the year, cleaning them, which the level of clean can vary from week to week, depending on how much time we have. We're going to talk about how we first started transporting the bikes in the back of my truck and how we did that, what learning we had to overcome, the trailer that we bought and why we bought the trailer that we bought, the tools that we use. We were going to go over some aftermarket parts that we put on the bikes that make it easier to ride. We were also going to cover some major items of maintenance as fork seals. I got fork seals to do on this one, the 2015 FX. This one, they lasted all year, and my son went to college, and I never bothered to change them because I didn't have to. So I got to get into that. We're going to probably end up removing the lowering link and lubing that up and greasing it up. We're greasing all the bearings and all the parts. Probably going to do a tire change because I'm going to change the rear tire of my FX. It's a motocross tire, and where we ride, there's a lot of rocks and a lot of mud, and I want to put one of the new hybrid tires on. So we'll probably show you how we change a tire without using a stand, which is it's a little tough, but it is doable. We're also going to share with you where we ride, our riding spots, and the areas that we like to ride in. So that's what we're going to be covering, and we hope that you stay tuned and check out our channel. Hey, if you like this video, please click the like and subscribe button, and don't forget to click the bell so you won't miss our next episode. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.